The opening of the academic year 2020-2021 is almost here. A celebration of our academic community with live music, an inspiring theme, a renowned keynote speaker, and a big live audience at the theater and at Vrijthof. Yes, that was the plan. But then
het coronavirus houdt ons land in de greep.
COVID-19 threw a spanner in the works.
Evenementen, bijeenkomsten met meer dan 100 personen worden in heel Nederland afgelast.
We had to change our format, and after some innovative adjustments, we are proud to welcome you all online. This year, no Vrijthof for us, but we welcome you live from the latest jewel in UM's crown, the Kazerne, with an inspiring keynote speaker in the field of educational innovation, Eric Mazur. There will be music, videos, and of course, the Student Award.
As the winner of the Student Award, the jury has chosen.
As always, the UM President, Martin Paul, will lead the academic ceremony. Make yourself comfortable and don't forget your drinks. We're about to begin in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome here at the Tapijn campus in Maastricht and at your computer screens. Welcome to this special ceremony to open the new academic year, also on behalf of my colleagues Rianne Letchert, Director Magnificus, and Nick Boss, Vice President of the University. Today's ceremony is carried out in a way that nobody of us imagined a year ago. It really doesn't follow the traditional format as we have seen. There's no procession of professors. There is no lecture in the Great Hall of the theater. Most of you will follow us online, and we are just here at the Tapijn Kaserne with a small group under strict corona-related social distancing rules. But the location that we choose is a special one. The Tapijn Kaserne campus, our newest edition, is a special one. It's located in the middle of our city in the Maastricht City Park. And at the end of our ceremony today, we will also have a special surprise for you to show why this is a very important space to connect the university to the city and its citizens. When we chose the motto of this event, After the Storm, we were a bit too optimistic, as the pandemic is, of course, as we all know, still raging on. Due to the exceptional efforts of our university community, we were able not only to complete last academic year successfully, but also to plan the new year under the motto, on campus if it can, online if it must. I want to thank everybody at our university who made this possible, our academic staff, but also especially the unsung heroes of the managerial and support staff who worked extremely hard in the last few weeks over the summer, for example, to get all buildings corona-proof, to implement health protocols, and to improve our digital platforms. While we're all still suffering from the fallout of the pandemic, which will stay with us for a while to come, I believe that it is very important to look ahead, so we can deal with the crisis and not the other way around. As Maastricht University, we have taken a number of steps to address this challenge. First, offer an attractive student experience under the new circumstances with a mix of online education and on-campus events, respecting the rules of hygiene and asking everybody to take responsibility for the health of the members of our community. Secondly, continuously improving our digital offer and quality by creating a virtual campus environment focusing on educational innovation, but also with the goal to create a safe and adaptable environment for our teachers when they need it. Third, relieving some of the immense COVID-related work pressure of our staff and help those with temporary contracts by investing more than 7 million euros together with our faculties from the reserves to support the primary process, education and research. 4, offering improved support to our researchers under the changed COVID-related conditions to acquire and maintain good funding. 5, continue our engagement for our immediate surroundings, the city, the region, and the province of Limburg. For example, on the Brightlands campuses, but also in collaboration with the Maastricht University Medical Center and with knowledge institutions on both sides of the border. 6, continue to position ourselves as an international university and the bridge of the Netherlands to and from Europe by working together with our network partners, for example, in the UFE Alliance, creating new models for international collaboration and mobility in a digital context, but also strengthening internationalization at home. 7, we need to continue our engagement for important societal challenges, such as addressing climate change, energy transition, and the sustainable development goals in general. 8, last not least, as we hear the voices from within our community, we stand by you in saying that there is no place for racism on an individual or institutional level at this university. We will continue our efforts to uncover unequal opportunities, to broaden our curriculum, and to create a safe and inclusive environment for students and staff alike. Now you will say, this is quite a package you're proposing here, but we are optimistic that we can reach these goals when we work together. And coming back to the image of a storm, realize that we're all in one boat. Fortunately, we have shown that we address problems from many different angles here at Maastricht University. We embrace diversity and intercultural exchange. It stimulates our creativity and out-of-the-box thinking. As Executive Board, we are committed to support this process as best as we can in these challenging times. But as I said, we can only achieve this together as a community and with our partners close by and far away. I would like to end with a quote attributed to Abraham Lincoln to underline our approach. The best way to predict the future is to create it. So once again, thank you for joining us today during this special hybrid event. Let us remember we can only weather the storm together. This brings me to the introduction of our keynote speaker for today. I'm very happy that he agreed to join us live from the United States, from Boston, Massachusetts, to share some of his inspiring views on education and the future of universities with us. During his talk, you can send him your question via this email address, and he will answer them during the Q&A, at least some of them, because we also have organized a webinar with him much longer in 1 week where you can follow up. But first, let's watch a video that will tell us more about our special guest, Professor Eric Mazur from Harvard University.
Eric Mazur is a leading physicist, best known for his contributions to the field of nanophotonics. He is also an internationally acknowledged educational innovator, widely recognized for his work on peer instruction, an interactive teaching method aimed at teaching large lecture classes in an interactive manner. In his 2015 book, Principles and Practice of Physics, he lays out a groundbreaking new approach to teaching introductory calculus-based physics. Mazur has received numerous awards for his work in physics and in education. He has stood at the foundation of several successful companies, holds many patents, and has published extensively in peer-reviewed journals. He is the Balkanski Professor of Physics and Applied Physics and Area Chair of Applied Physics at Harvard University, member of the Faculty of Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, and former president of the Optical Society. Maastricht University is grateful to welcome such an internationally acclaimed scientist, and we are pleased that he has taken the time to give this lecture via video conference from the United States.
Thank you, President Paul. I would rather be in Maastricht right now, but as they say here, every cloud has a silver lining. Or perhaps I should say, I should quote actually Johan Cruijff here, who once famously stated, ieder nadeel hebt zijn voordeel. Ik kan jullie nu gewoon vanuit Harvard toespreken, als het moet, ook in het Nederlands. Now, post-coronavirus, we're not there yet. And maybe that before jumping straight to post-coronavirus, it might be a good idea to first talk briefly about pre-coronavirus. You see, I followed, pardon me here, this should be moved out of the screen. I started teaching at Harvard almost 40 years ago, a long time. And when I started teaching at Harvard, I never asked myself, how am I going to teach? I did what my professors had done to me, lecturing. That was all I knew. There were no, learning centers. There was no training for pedagogy or anything. I was asked to teach. I'm showing here a very old picture of me teaching at Harvard. This picture was taken BC. No, I'm not that old. It was taken before computers. As you can see, I was using an overhead projector. Now, I was asked to teach a course that none of my colleagues wanted to teach, physics for pre-medical students. These were not students who wanted to learn physics. No, they had to because it was a requirement, and they already hated physics before setting foot into my classroom. Now, why did I lecture to them? I did that because I projected my own experience on them. I had learned physics sitting in a classroom not very different from that one, listening to my professors lecture to me. And I'm sure that they too, when they started teaching, made the same assumption. I learned it by listening to a lecture, therefore I'm going to teach by lecturing. And that same way back, generation after generation after generation, all the way until this guy here, which is Henry VIII, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, giving a guest lecture at the University of Bologna. And look carefully, it's not that different from a current scene in any type of auditorium setting. We no longer wear those gowns other than usually at commencement. I guess if I would have been there, I would have worn one for this event. But look carefully, the people in the front row are paying close attention. In the second row, they're looking a little bit more bored. And in the last row, they're not paying any attention to the lecture at all, but having a conversation. And then there is this person here in the back row. I don't know if he or she's asleep or in agony, but you have to agree, it's not very different from the scene you saw before. Now, I received really high evaluations for my lecturing, in spite of the fact that these were students who did not want to learn physics. So very quickly, and they also did well on what I considered were difficult exams. So very quickly, I started to believe that I was the world's best physics teacher. Well, it turned out that was a complete illusion. And when many years later, I tested them on their understanding using very simple word-based questions, or using questions that put the physics in a different context from the one in which they had learned, I discovered they weren't actually able to answer those, in my mind, easy questions. That's when I realized that what I was doing was merely transferring information to the students. But education is so much more than information transfer. Students need to make sense of the information. And if you stop to think about it, in the traditional approach to teaching, the emphasis on campus is on the information transfer in the form of a synchronous instructor-paced lecture. And the hard part, the sense-making here, is left on the students on their own. Yes, maybe some of the sense-making happens in the classroom, but if you ask yourself, where did things really click? Where did you have the aha moments that permitted you to make sense of the information? Well, it's mostly outside of the classroom. If you ask yourself also, which is the hardest of the two parts, the sense-making or the information transfer, I think we all agree it's the sense-making. Now, had I been in this mode in March when we went online, I would have moved the information transfer online using Zoom and given a online lecture that is paced by the instructor and still synchronous. Now, because many of my students are outside of the US and not in the same time zone as myself, I had some students in Europe, some in Africa, some in New Zealand, you record the lecture. And now some students are watching the recorded instructor-paced lecture asynchronously. And in the process, they are completely alone. They're alone in the information transfer part. They're alone in the sense-making part. And deep down, education is a synchronous activity, is a social activity, not an isolated, lonely activity. So we would have taken a perhaps already broken model to education and made it even worse. Luckily, I was not in that situation, because when I discovered back some 30 years ago that my lecturing wasn't really very effective, even though it got high ratings and it got my students to the point that they could actually solve textbook problems, not real problems, but textbook problems. When I discovered that my lecturing didn't really work that well, I radically changed my approach. I switched from teaching by telling to teaching by questioning. So I asked my students to take responsibility for the easy part, the information transfer. They read my notes before coming to class. And then in class, as I said, I taught by questioning, a method I call peer instruction for reasons that you'll see in just a moment. So I ask a question, I give students time to think about the question. They're sitting silently in class for a minute or two. Then I ask them to commit to an answer, and I polled them. Initially, I did that by having them put their hands on their chest, using their fingers to indicate the choice. Later, we used clickers, and then ultimately a response system on their cellular phones. I try to aim the question so that half of them get the right answer and half of them do not get the right or desired answer. I then tell my students, find a neighbor who has a different answer and try to convince that neighbor that you are right and he or she is wrong. Complete chaos in the classroom. They talk. But what happens is that the students who have the right or desired answer, on average, convince those who do not have the right answer. I then repoll them, and if we start with something like 50% of correct or desired answers, it's not unusual to end with 80% or more correct answer, because during that discussion, that's when the aha moments occur. Oh, yes, now I get it. I then end with an explanation, which can come from me or from one of the students, and that cycle repeats until the time is up. Now, during that discussion, that's the key point, because that's when students, convince one another of the correct answer. And they do that more effectively than I would. Why? Because they have only recently learned it. They'll still know what the difficulty is that a beginning learner has. They don't suffer from what my colleague Steven Pinker at Harvard calls the curse of knowledge. I've forgotten the difficulty that a beginning learner faces. They have not. So using that method over the years, I, and later many others in different fields, showed significantly higher learning gains. So here's the normalized learning gain that I obtained with lecturing. I tripled it using peer instruction, and similar results have been shown in other disciplines. And on top of that, there's better retention. So when the pandemic hit, I already on campus was simply teaching by synchronous peer instruction, focusing on the hard part of education, the sense making. And the students were taking care asynchronously and at their own pace about the asynchronous pre-class part. So when we moved on campus, off campus online, it was actually very easy for me. The information transfer took place on a platform that was already online and that was interactive. And the online part, the sense-making part, was also interactive. And using Zoom breakout rooms, it was very easy to replicate the in-class experience. So now both the information transfer part and the sense-making part were fully interactive. We did not lose a sense of community by going from campus to going online. And rather than even isolating the students even more than they were already isolated, we continued this interactivity once we moved online. I want to close here by actually pointing out two words or reflecting briefly on two words I used. I used the word synchronous and asynchronous, and I used the word self-paced and instructor-paced. One of the things that I found over the summer is that there are many parts in activity that we do synchronously and at the pace of the instructor for no other good reason than that is what we were forced to do because of teaching in auditoria. But as we move online and as we think about education post-coronavirus, it would be good to ask oneself about each activity that you do in the classroom. Does this need to be synchronous? Does this need to be instructor-led? What do I mean by synchronous? By synchronous, I mean everybody together, instructor and students, at the same time. And if you have a classroom, there's no other choice because you all need to be in the classroom at the same time. And then by paced, I mean instructor paced, I mean everybody together at the same pace, as if education is a conveyor belt where everybody moves at the same pace. But we know that not everybody learns at the same pace at all times or at the same pace as everybody else. So if you think of a lecture is synchronous and it's instructor paced. If you think of a recorded lecture, that's asynchronous. You can do it whenever you can watch it whenever you want, but it's still instructor paced. Although you could pause it, but most students put the playback speed at 2.0 to get through it as fast as they can. A lab is synchronous. Everybody needs to be in the laboratory at the same time, but at least it's self-paced. Homework or study is asynchronous and self-paced. And over the summer, I realized that there were many activities that I could move from synchronous to asynchronous and from instructor-paced to self-paced. And here's the key point, which I'd like to leave you with as we wrap up this little discussion, this little talk here. I hope to have a discussion after this. The more you do this, the more you move from synchronous to asynchronous. And the more you move from instructor-paced to self-paced, the more time we make available for us as instructors to help students where it really matters. So I have, for this coming semester, reserved almost all of my face-to-face time with the students to be more in a mentorship role where I can help them and give individualized instructions, and left all the other parts of my teaching through recorded video, through interactive exercises where the students interact with each other and I'm present through pre-recorded video, by having that being completely asynchronous and self-paced. And I know that that is the future towards improving education. And I also know that whenever it will be, Harvard has decided to be online or remote, as they call it, for the entire academic year, But let's say that next academic year, a year from now, we actually move back to the classroom. I know that even I will not go back to education the way it was before. So I'm going to leave you here and open the floor for discussion. I know I've glossed over many details, so I prepared a handout about my remote teaching that you may want to look at later on. And also I put the slides online, and I look also very much forward to digging deeper in the webinar I will be giving a week from now. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Eric. And of course, you know, we at Maastricht University share a lot of your ideas, but it's always good to pick each other's brains. And again, I would mention that we have an in-depth webinar with Eric Mazur scheduled for next week. You can subscribe to this webinar through our webpage. But I also would like to ask a few questions. We have some questions that we got via email. And one question that I see is, do you think that asynchronous lectures have a value at all? Because we do asynchronous lecture next to our problem-based learning system.
I think that is a very good question. And had you asked me this question at the beginning of the summer, I would have probably said, you know, with a lot of emphasis, no. Because essentially what happens is that you take something where the student is already passive, and then you move it online, where what is going to happen is that the student is going to put the playback speed at 1.5 or 2.0 to try to get through it as fast as they can alone. So that was my mental model of a recorded lecture. However, and I'll go into more detail in the webinar, there is a possibility to layer something over that recorded lecture, which is an asynchronous interactive discussion between the students. In other words, if you load the recorded lecture into a platform that permits students to interact with each other and annotate the video, you know, you listen to a pre-recorded lecture, and at some point you think, I wonder what this really means. I thought that if blah, 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 and so on. You can stop the video, make the annotation, other students see the annotation and can reply to it, not synchronously, this would happen asynchronously, so later you can return and say, oh yeah, I now understand what happens there. So I've actually radically changed my mind over the summer. I think if you just make the recording available and you have the students passively watching, then the answer is no. But if you layer interactivity over it and engagement, because that's what it really is about, it's ultimately about engaging the minds of our students, then I think there is actually some value and possibly significant value to having a pre-recorded lecture.
Okay, thank you. Here's another interesting one that certainly is playing at our community. What's the best way to organize assessment in a online virtual education world? And I remember that you once have written that assessment is the killer of learning, if I remember that correctly. So what is your view on that?
You know, until 5 minutes before I started here, I was working on the assessment page on the Canvas site for my course, which kicks off on Thursday. Yes, I mean, think about it. Information transfer, sense making. I talked about it in the context of instruction, but I think that contrast is just as important in assessment. And as we move online, assessing information transfer is useless because the student is already sitting at the computer and you have information at your fingertips. And think about it, a lot of assessment that happens worldwide, from what I know about Maastricht University, you've evolved significantly beyond that, but worldwide, a lot of assessment consists of isolating students from each other and isolating them from any source of information and testing recall of information. That system is completely broken and impossible online. So I think we need to not only, and I'm very grateful for this question, we need to not only rethink our approach to instruction, we need to rethink our approach to assessment and get away from the lowest level thinking skill, namely memorization, and really try to find ways to assess higher level thinking skill. In particular, I would say the benefit of moving online is that it forces us to do this, because any question to which the answer can be Googled is no longer a valid, and was never, in my opinion, a valid assessment question, because it essentially tests a skill that is meaningless in the 21st century. You, I, all of us Google information all the time. It's not about memorizing it. It's knowing how to find the information and how to use the information. So two things need to happen to make assessment effective online. One is we need to move to higher order thinking skills. At the least understanding, but ideally analysis, evaluation, and perhaps even more creative skills at the top of Bloom's taxonomy, which is a taxonomy, if you want, of thinking skills. That's one thing. The second thing is that rather than having very periodic, but distantly spaced in time, high stakes assessment opportunity, we should do a continuous assessment. I have moved my assessment completely to a specifications grading scheme, where students are not measured on how much they know at some specific instance, 2, 3, maybe 4 over the semester, but they're measured, their assessment is based on how many units they master by the end of the semester. And I hope that we'll have an opportunity to talk about that more, but that's essentially the two key points that are so important in this coronavirus time and the post-coronavirus time.
Thank you. We have a number of questions here, but I would, in the spirit of time, refer them to the webinar. They will all be answered. And as I said earlier, everybody is invited to participate, students and teachers alike. Again, thank you very much, Eric, for these inspirations, which will help us in the future discussions. Thanks for joining us from Harvard. I think traditionally now at our ceremonies, we have a musical interlude, so there's unfortunately no marching band or orchestra around us. We have asked, however, the students from the Conservatorium Maastricht to think out of the box, as you all have to do in these corona times, and this is a video of the result. Enjoy.
Good afternoon. As the rector of Maastricht University, it is my honor to reveal to you the winner of the Student Award 2020. Now, with this award, which is always assessed by these fine jury members on your screen, our university would like to recognize outstanding cultural or social achievements by students or groups of students. And the jury assesses the nominations for the award on the basis of a number of important criteria, such as social and cultural impact or sustainability. Now, unfortunately, given the circumstances, we could not invite all the nominees here today, which we normally do. So, as everyone is doing these days, I had a Zoom meeting with them last week. And I would like to share that with you now. Great to see all your faces live. I'm very happy that you could join this special online Student Award gathering. Now, we've made a video featuring each one of you and highlighting all your wonderful initiatives and achievements. And we're very proud to show our community all these great projects that you have initiated. So let's all watch the video together.
Food Co-op Maastricht is a community-based grocery store for students. And we were inspired by this idea because we were quite dissatisfied with the alternatives of the options of supermarkets that were available in the city, such as Albert Heijn and Jumbo. And so we decided to set up a grocery store that was local and seasonal, but still had really accessible, so cheap products for all the students around us, while having this idea of a community so people can come in and have a chat together instead of just going to their grocery store, buying something and leaving again. We think that our project is future-proof because we really have the intention of making, like our dream is to make a really functioning grocery store, and what we're doing right now really aims to achieve that. So we've had some backlash from Corona, but we have really paid attention to our social media presence and setting a more legal foundation. We are actually a stichting, and we're also in touch with quite some farmers to get more produce in, to get not only vegetables but also maybe bulk products, fruits, maybe even goat cheese or bread. We're not sure, but we're really trying to expand.
The idea of Interaction was born when I went to the Philippines to conduct a legal human rights internship at a local NGO. And it was there where I realized how much of an impact one student can have and the lack of media coverage and international awareness. So after talking with the students, we realized that there is this big drive of human rights advocacy. Interaction is bridging the gap between international passionate students and local NGOs worldwide. We are doing this by providing human rights internship spots in the legal sphere.
Coronavirus disease 2019 had far-stretching consequences for the healthcare system worldwide, and also here at the Maastricht University Medical Center. And for us as students, this meant the suspension of our clinical rotations, and therefore we initiated a safe and resource-conscious initiative and realized the deployment of over 200 students at the Maastricht University Medical Center.
Not only did these students take up great responsibility during the recent pandemic, they also reported that they have learned a lot because of these authentic and professional tasks they executed. And therefore we intend to continue these tasks as a liaison in the Maastricht University Medical Center in close cooperation with Maastricht University to further develop students as future clinicians.
The MET project was established in 2017, and students are matched in different teams, and those teams are then put in different neighborhoods in Maastricht. Right now we're at the Groene Loper, and one team is actually situated right over here in the neighborhood, and we have another team right over there in the neighborhood, which is actually also doing something with the Groene Loper in the project. And each team figures out in their neighborhood what the needs are of the neighbors, because each neighborhood is different and each team of course is different, trying to build up on what they find and then develop a project which they fulfill within their neighborhood together with the neighbors. So the main idea is to connect the students with the city itself and to establish contacts with the locals within Maastricht. Besides that, social awareness is growing every day, and I think especially in the future this will be very important and will be important also to each and every student to get more involved in their neighborhoods.
Maastricht for Climate is a student organization committed to climate justice. We got known because we organized the first climate march in Maastricht in March 2019, and since then we've been doing a lot of climate-related actions and other projects within the municipality and the university. Well, the need for this project stems from, I think, watching the news, seeing all the scientific predictions, and then I got inspired by the climate movement that arose everywhere in Europe, and I thought this has to come to Maastricht, so I called up my friend and we started a Facebook page, and quickly a lot of people started liking the page, so we thought we have to go further than this. We organized the first climate march, and since then we tried to bring this energy for change together, to organize, to create partnerships and a network so that we can truly change the municipality, our university, but also individual behavior. Through climate change and the climate movement, we've united the city. We've brought locals and students together behind the same cause. We've been working together with local organizations, and this is something that lacks a bit in Maastricht because you have two bubbles, the student bubble and the local bubble, and we don't interact so much. And through these common societal problems, we are interacting more.
So I think that was really impressive. And you will understand that it was very difficult for the jury, and I'm chairing the jury, to make a choice because all your initiatives are so great and we are very proud of all of you. But there can only be one initiative that can be winning. And this year's winner is, and I'm going to do some Arthur Bribosia. Congratulations to you, Arthur. Yes, Arthur. Arthur is here, my dear colleagues and students. Be careful, that you don't fall. You have to stay there. Yes, we have very good good instructions. Now, he's standing now here with a broken arm. When he heard that he was nominated, he climbed in a tree and he fell out. So now that you won, can you please not do that anymore? Just stick to the ground, because we're very proud of you. And I'm going to read from the jury report why your initiative got the Student Award 2020. And said, you are the founder and the developer of Maastricht for Climate, which is an organization with a very close-knit community of active members, and the membership is growing actually every day, which is very good to hear. Now, with Maastricht for Climate, you have organized already now 3 climate marches, a human chain on Black Friday, and many, many more smaller events, including debates on the meaning of academia in the collaboration with Sustainable 2030, because we have also quite a firm ambition there ourselves. Furthermore, you and the other members of your organization have brought the different environmental and social groups of Maastricht together to draft 8 specific demands to the municipality, and the mayor is here, so she can act upon it immediately, in order to make our city more sustainable and socially just. So we are very grateful for having students like you in our academic community, and we also hope that winning this award will encourage you to putting your energy also in the future in these very important goals. So again, congratulations with this award. Now, normally I hand over the flowers and the certificate and the statute, and that's always very difficult, by the way, so this is better. But now we don't do that, and you only have one hand, so that's even more complicated. So we will do that after the ceremony, and then we will also have a photo moment in order to honor you again with this wonderful award. Thank you very much. And we go together through this way before you fall off there, and I'll give the floor back to our president.
Ladies and gentlemen, in a few moments I will officially open the new academic year, and very fittingly the sun is starting to shine on us, as always in Maastricht. You know that a very important element of these celebrations is the performance of our unofficial anthem here at the university, particularly this year, where we celebrate the 250th birthday of the composer that composed this piece. It is the final chorus of Ludwig van Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Ode an die Freude. Also, I think this year particularly a projection of our hope that in the future things will be better and we'll get really a grip of this crisis and can deal with it. Of course, once again, due to social distancing regulations, we can't have a performance here on stage, but we have asked the students of the Conservatorium Maastricht and the members of our own university orchestra to bring to you this year's version of Ode an die Freude, Ode to Joy. What a great performance. Thanks to the students of the Conservatorium and the members of our university orchestra to make this production. I think it's one of the highlights in a long chain of different interpretations of this piece. So thanks again. So dear all, both here with me at Tapine and over there at your computer screen, I'm happy that we have been able to celebrate this together and that all the video links apparently have worked. I think it's a good example that we need to try to overcome these challenges with very diverse approaches. And diversity, I think, is the key. And diversity is also a topic that is addressed by the new artwork that has been installed here at Tapine Kaserne on the initiative of our colleague Nick Boss. The renowned art photographer Robin de Puy has taken pictures of various students and others within our academic community and beyond to create a wonderful piece of work that's called Screening Diversity. Her aim was to illustrate diversity by celebrating the similarities. In my view, that's a great symbol to look forward, look at each other and learn from each other, which will be needed in this coming year and beyond. We are diverse, and exactly this is our strength, I am convinced. So I wish you all good health in the coming academic year and that we weather this storm together. I hereby declare the new academic year officially opened. Thank you.